Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a short little knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Bestech Glok. This is a Keanu design, which is a name that you've probably seen on this channel before. Just wanted to make sure the designer got credit. This knife should be available, and it is not very expensive. I will link it right down in the description. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks so much to Bestech for sending it in. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this knife. Overall length of the Glock coming in at just shy. No, I'm wrong. 8 inches on the dot. Blade length, 3.5 inches, maybe. Now, you know what? That I'm right about. 3.45. Yeah, I'm right. 3.45. Having an argument with myself. 3.25 inch cutting edge here. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom skills you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others. Where is my... There it is. The AD... the 80-20.5 and the 80-10. You can see that it's a bit longer than the 80-20.5, obviously shorter than the 80-10. Not nearly as big as the 80-10. So still within like a normal, I mean, it's a full-size knife. It's just, it doesn't feel like a massive knife, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Let's put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. The knife is definitely longer than the Para 3, a little shorter than the PM2, but we have more cutting edge, actually a substantial amount. So depending on what you prefer, that might be a benefit to you. Let's put it up against the Benchmade grip tilliner, in this case the Ritter Hogue, and sorry, there's grid lines, and this drives me nuts when they're not straight. Sure, you know what? The Benchmade grip tilliner, we don't show that one very much. All right, how's the action on this guy? This is a button lock. So in the past, you know, I've got out the gauntlets, and that was a funny chapter of the channel. And those are still fun. We might bring them back. But to make sure and keep this consistent, if you don't know, the new rule on this channel is I don't do spine whack tests on knives right out of the box anymore. I want to wait, carry it. I want to deploy it a few times. I want to let the locking systems wear in. I think Neves actually came up with this. Somebody said Neves Knives had mentioned this. And if that is true, I agree with that. I think that's smart, and I think the way that I was doing it in the past might have been a little bit stupid. So a little triple tap is all I'm going to do. Try and make it fair across the channel, because that's really all the more I demand from the lock. Now, if you baton with your folding knives, that's dumb. But if you do that, I would suggest the triad lock, or realistically a fixed blade, right? Or something that's meant for chopping wood, you know, like a hatchet. Not something I demand for my knives. And in any case, I don't do a lot of, you know, cutting tasks that are going to impact the spine. But light spine tapping and light spine pressure are appropriate to test, because there are circumstances where while you're using the knife appropriately, you might get stuck a little bit and try to wiggle things out, move the blade around, and you don't want it to close on your hand. All it takes is one time, and then you've paid more for stitches than you did for the knife. In this case, by a long shot. So I hope not to have to explain that further on this channel, but who knows. This knife can survive that. It is a typical plunge lock, and they've done a good job with it. The geometry is fine. There is no blade play. There's no stick, which is pretty cool. Anyways, the action is very good, and a lot of times these sort of levery pad things, I don't like them, but in this case, it's enough of a ledge, and it's in a good enough position where it's actually pretty, I gotta be honest, it's actually pretty convenient to use, right? This is one of those things where it's actually, like, especially if you're wearing gloves, I think it's actually a little bit easier to manipulate than thumb studs. So it's also completely out of the cutting path and is just slightly wider than the frame. We can see here, sorry, my dryer is going nuts. Apparently someone put a shoe in there. I don't know why it's making so much noise. It sounds like a helicopter upstairs, but anyways, listen. Jeez, what's in the dryer? Okay, anyways, but yeah, it sticks out just a little bit from the frame, so some people are going to be bothered by that. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Honestly, I think the action's very good. It's very smooth. The detent is what you'd expect from a detent that is being created by the plunge lock. It's not very heavy. It's pretty light. So this is going to happen if you do a lot of parkour. If you front flip from one destination to another, it's likely that this, like if you Ninja Turtle from where you live to where you work, this might come flying out. I'm kidding. But, it's all that much more important to carry this knife the appropriate way. It's right hand only, which we're going to talk about. Tip up, that means it should be in your right hand pocket up against the pocket seam, right? Even if you are left-handed. Because if the blade can come out and there's nothing holding the blade in, that means, especially if it's in your left-hand pocket, the blade is now out and open for you to run your hand into in your pocket. So that's my advice. But yeah, the action is good. It's just a little bit loosey-goosey. Let's go ahead and carry profile thickness up against the Spyderco Pair 3. It's actually slightly thinner. Length and height up against the PM2 and Pair 3. It's thinner, but these do come outside the frame, so that's an important thing to remember. It's kind of a tapering rectangle shape. Lengthwise, it's a little longer than the Pair 3. Nowhere near as tall. Nowhere near as long as the Pair 3, though. Materials, what do we have here? So we have frag textured G10. This is a more unique looking knife just because of the shape of the handle and because of the frag texturing. We don't see that quite as much on G10 stuff, so that's kind of neat if you like frag stuff. We have a nested steel liner, which is cool. And we have a 14C28N blade, which is, what should we call this? It's not technically a compound blade because these are two flat grinds. It just has a separate, what do we call this? Right? I don't know. I'm not sure what we call this. I guess you have some extra thickness and some extra tip and tip edge stability. Maybe we still call it a compound grind. But then again, do we refer to the American Tanto as a compound grind? Because that's what's happening here, except there's curvature. I don't know. I'll let the blade shape police sort it out in the comments section. But here is the shape of the blade. That is how it looks. Where were we at? Oh, let's do, we're going to weigh it. We just did materials. Weight on this guy coming in at 3.39 ounces. Not super duper heavy. Pretty good ratios, honestly, considering the length of the blade. Let's do a hardware check. I'll get out my tools. My tools are very inexpensive, very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use in this channel. T8. The adjustment head, I mean, if you want to use a spanner tool, sure, but the adjustment head on this side is a Torx, a T8. We have two T6 screws back here. Wish they were T8, but okay. We have two T6 screws for the pocket clip and no lefty mounting position for the pocket clip. So, minimal hardware, very easy to take apart and maintain, reassemble, all that. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Let's measure blade stock thickness and we will move on into the main portion, or, say it with me, the meat and potatoes of the review. So, the blade stock thickness is coming in at 120 thousandths. Can we see it? I'm sorry. It's got a low battery. About what I expect. Okay. Meat and potatoes time. It's comfortable, but kind of in an awkward way. This is a bit huge, this area right here. So it's kind of like, do I put my finger here, or do I prefer to be closer to the blade, right? This position is comfortable, but like half of the meat of my middle finger is in here. So, I don't know. It's not bad, right? If you have huge hands, you have a huge finger that'll fit in here, then okay. Truthfully, it feels pretty good. For being flat scales, the edges are nicely knocked down, almost rounded, almost radiused, right? The frag texturing does provide meaningful grip without slowing the thing down coming in and out of your pocket. It's not like an aggressive peel ply texturing or anything, but the pocket clip does ride directly on the texturing. And truthfully, the thing that bothered me is that we have a bill at the end of the clip. They should just stop it right here. That would make it much easier. That's the reason why the MXG Deep Carry clip for the Spyderco Pair 3 works so well, because it comes down and up and stops rather than swoop up over. This is a bit pinchy and a bit finicky if you have thicker pocket seams, but okay, not a deal breaker. Overall, very unique design, and the blade does get fairly thin right here. I love Bestech's tumbled finish. I think that looks cool. Jimping is out to a meaningful spot on the spine of the knife. I feel a little bit uncomfortable on knives that end the jimping right here. Like, this is not a comfortable way for me to hold the knife, right? If I'm doing something that would require the thumb be up here, I like that the jimping is out there. That makes sense to me. But hammer grip is fine. There might be a little bit of a spot if you're cutting at a weird angle where you get caught here on this sort of, ledge, but mostly no, right? Mostly the blade is good to go for general tasks. It's, as is the case with most modern folding knives in this corner of the knife world that we all exist in. The knife is not perfectly optimized for anything in particular, but it's very good at a lot of different things that common people like me do with pocket knives, so I didn't really have an issue with it. Whatever the grind is, I like that it's one continuous curvature. Well, it's straight and then it curves. This makes it a little easier to sharpen, right? I think this will probably widen out over time if you just keep the same angle, but okay, no big deal. There's a flat that carries out about 98% the length of the blade, which is fine. Everything looks good, no sharp edges or anything. Really nice tumbled finish. 14C28N, we got Keanu on one side, we got Bestech on the other. Not anything crazy. I don't really mind that. I think that's just fine. There's a couple of standoffs back here. There's a lanyard hole, fine. Pocket clip, what I love about the pocket clip, and this is a pocket clip that proves what I've been saying for a long time. Pocket clips don't need to be super long, and when they are super long, they're in the way. This knife carried just fine in my pocket, and the retention is good enough that there is legitimately no difference between let's get a knife that's a similar size, right? So the Ritter Hogue is also 8 inches overall. Now, the Ritter Hogue's clip is not necessarily my favorite clip in the whole world, but it's pretty good. Yeah, I think the clip length is all right, but it's very long. A lot of people say, oh, well, when you have a longer clip, it holds it to your pants better. I don't think so. I think that has more to do with the retention of the clip, right? And what you're doing. I mean, I don't sprint a lot with my knife. I mean, if you do, I honestly feel like the retention on this clip, this would release from my pocket faster than this one would because of the total amount of surface contact and how much retention there is. This is a pretty tight clip. This was fine. In and out of the pocket, it was slightly pinchy, but it held on just fine. And more importantly, the pocket clip is nowhere near the middle of my hand while I'm gripping it, which means I don't really notice it. Back here, I don't mind back here, this pad of my hand, right? Or I guess whatever we call this. I guess pad. Would we call this the pad? I don't know. Back here, I don't mind it as much as long as it's not a goose bill, or water slide, elf shoe going into your hand. This is just fine. Pocket clips, I think overall, should be a bit shorter, right? I think the Hogue Deca has a great one. I think the Benchmade Bug Out has one of the most perfect pocket clips ever. Really good stuff. And even as long as the the MXG Gear clip is relative to the total body size of the Para 3, I think this is also an excellent clip, right? So I think this is great. I have no issue with that. Really wish that this was set up for lefties. That really would not have been hard, and I don't think anyone would have cared about a little slot right here. Lefties, you don't have a big choke up spot on this knife, which means if there were, let's imagine there was a forward choil here. The dangerous thing is you have the pad on your index finger coming down on the button, which means it could potentially disengage like this. But that's not there. You're not going to be grabbing it there. You're going to be grabbing it here. And that's not a position where it's going to, unless you're intentionally trying to do it, disengage it. My point is, this could be just fine for lefties. Like, lefties could enjoy this. You're just using your index finger instead of your thumb, and that's arguably easier. So why they decided not to make this an ambi-carry knife, I don't know. And again, I know people say, well, you just put it in your left-hand pocket. Here's the problem. It's not, the seam's not holding the blade in. So the detent's not super strong. So if the blade's out like this is in your pocket like this now, right? Not only an issue for your hand the next time your hand goes in your pocket, this is pointed towards your goods, man. Or lady, or whoever you are. This is pointed towards your goods. Come on now. I know my brother doesn't watch my reviews, but I get on him for that. God dang it, he carries that thing in the wrong pocket. He's like, I never had an accident. Well, listen, it only takes one time. It only takes one time. Anyways, lockup solidity, it's great. No blade play up, down, left, or right. No lock stick, no pivot lash, extremely smooth. I mean, really, the action on this thing is like nuts. Look at that, that's nice. No plunge drag on the button lock, right? Not all button locks have it. Some of them do. This one doesn't. The blade is also perfectly centered with... Boy, there's not even any detent lash on that. That's pretty cool. This is a cool knife. It's kind of weird. I mean, some people are going to look at it and be like, great. And some people will be like, yeah, whatever. It's just slightly different than other things that we see at this territory. It is 14C28N and the liners are nested. It's got a little bit more of an expensive build. $68. That's okay. It's not mind-blowing, but it's all right. It's got a few alternative features and a little bit of an alternative aesthetic while still being a plenty functional knife. I don't think that people should be beating down doors for this, but if you like how it looks and you're on a budget, I think this is a decent choice. I'm going to put it in my Cheap Knives I Like playlist. I think that's where it belongs. I think you're good to go. If you like this, I think the quality is good enough, and it's a decent offering from Keanu and Bestech. So, anyways, that's going to be pretty much it today, guys. Let's go ahead and get the card there. Please, like I said, this will be linked down below. There's multiple configurations. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.